My guy, science just proved that the Bible was real without even knowing it. Okay, so as y'all know, scientists just found out there's another DNA called Neanderthal DNA.
My girl. No, scientists have not just proven the Bible to be correct. And as far as scientists knowing about Neanderthal DNA, we've known about Neanderthal for multiple decades, if not almost a century. And as far as finding out about Neanderthal DNA, we've known about Neanderthal DNA since 1997. So we didn't just find out about it. We knew about the mitochondrial Neanderthal DNA. They have just in 2015 were able to establish that about a 1 to 4% of the population has Neanderthal DNA. So no.
So now I'm about to tell y'all why science just proved that the Bible is real without even realizing it. So scientists are saying that every race contains Neanderthal DNA. You know, Asians, Latinos, Europeans, Hispanics, and the list goes on. But they also say that every race has Neanderthal DNA except for African modern descendants, aka black people. Like, you know, they really just proven that the Bible really is talking about the black people and how they're the real Hebrew Israelites, the real Jews. No disrespect, but one of the scientists actually noted that it's kind of like them being the pure humans. Hey, that didn't come from me. That they said that. I'm just repeating it.
So I just did a video the other day about Neanderthals, and for a longer explanation of why Neanderthal DNA can be found in certain groups of people more so than others, you can go back to about 2 or 3 days ago when I did that video. But the short and dirty of it is this. It is true that Neanderthals are a type of hominid, exactly how Homo sapien is a type of hominid. Homo sapiens did develop in Africa first, and then Neanderthals developed prior to the Homo sapiens, but pretty much were in the European region. Now this was about, at minimum, 50,000 years ago, more than likely about 200,000 years ago when the Neanderthals existed. But somewhere in between that time, Homo sapien and Neanderthal began to commingle with each other. The most likely situation was that during the last ice age, about 35,000 years ago, when Europe became frozen over, Neanderthals migrated more south, as well as the Homo sapiens began to migrate more north. And during that time frame of them connecting with each other, the Neanderthal was either bred out or they were conquered by the Homo sapiens. Now, the Homo sapiens most did breed, as we can see, with the Neanderthals. This is why you have a mixture of bloodlines. And those who mixed with the Neanderthal, and as the Ice Age began to go away, they migrated back north and then out into the eastern areas, as well as other places around the world. You had this migration going on. Therefore, the Africans, who are the Homo sapiens, primarily Homo sapiens, remained in Africa because there was no need to go anywhere, but you did have some that did migrate into Asia, into the Americas, and so they would have had contact with the Neanderthals and then made it with them, which is why you will find more Neanderthal DNA in those groups of people, not so much in the African people. Now, you are an American young lady. Most likely, if your generations have been here for 4 or 5 generations or more, then your bloodline has been mixing with those same bloodlines of people who have Neanderthal DNA in them. You may find yourself to have some Neanderthal DNA. If your bloodline was in Africa and never intermarried or intermingled with anyone outside of sub-Saharan Africa, then it's most likely that your bloodline remained more Homo sapien without any Neanderthal DNA. That does not make one group better than the other, and it certainly does not prove the Bible, and certainly does not prove who are the original Jews, because those stories are for people who were developed in the Levant, not the people who were developed in sub-Saharan Africa.
Where Neanderthal blood came from. Neanderthals came from Nephilims. Nephilims came from giants. And giants came from the fallen angels. Now, the Bible speaks about how the fallen angels were supposed to be protecting the humans. But instead, they begin to fancy them and begin to do sexual activities with the women.
So instead of science, we're now going to go into fantasy writings that the Israelites developed from the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Akkadians, and the Sumerians, who they wrote about things that happened or supposedly happened thousands of years before them. So first we're going to talk about science, now we're going to skip into fantasy. So skip.
Now, Neanderthal skin couldn't expose to the sun, so they had to move to a colder climate, aka the Caucasus Mountains. See where I'm going there? Which is where they got the word Caucasians from. Their skin grew lighter and lighter, which created the lighter skin pigmentation.
Nope. Neanderthals were known to be incredibly hairy and actually did have more pigmentation within their skins, but they were covered in hair. But as I said before, the Neanderthal were bred out more so than they just moved to the Caucasus Mountains. People regained the Caucasus Mountain after the Younger Dryas flood, which was the result of quick heating from the Younger Dryas from the last ice age. So, nope.
Now, Nephilims were giants, the violent offspring produced when wicked angels mated with human women in the days of Noah. The hybrids born from this unnatural union were no ordinary children. Since the Neanderthal blood is still alive, that just proved that some must have lived after the Noah flood. Otherwise, their habitation would have been washed away during this global catastrophe. This means one or more of the 8 people that was on Noah's Ark must have carried the unique genetic variations that Neanderthals possessed, allowing those genes to survive and to be passed on for a time before they eventually died out. Anyways, I got more to talk about, but we just gonna do that later. So...
Actually, she doesn't really talk about it that much later because her being a Hebrew Israelite, she stopped talking about those sorts of things, and now she just talks about wigs and eyebrows on her page, which I'm guessing she's probably making good money off that, seeing the number of people that follow her on TikTok. And I am not shooting that down at all. Girl, you go do your thing, whichever works for you. But to the subject matter that she spoke at hand right here. Now, she does claim that she is still working on herself. She is not perfect. So do not go at her and say that she is a hypocrite in that format. She openly admits that she is still working on herself. She's not Christian, but is a Hebrew Israelite. Now, I'm surprised that a person who would claim Hebrew Israelite would say that the Bible is actually incorrect. And that's what she's effectively saying when she said that some of Noah's children must have had the Nephilim bloodline within them, and that is how the Neanderthal gene was able to still proliferate, because there has to be a way for them to do it. And that is one of the theories. Some Christians or Hebrews would say that there was a second incursion of angels, while others who still read the book of Enoch recognize that Enoch said that the giant Og was tied to the top of the ark and then therefore was able to be saved. And that is why you have Og being mentioned and talked about later on in the Bible, in, I believe, Deuteronomy or Exodus. Deuteronomy or Numbers is when Og is talked about again. Which is interesting, because if it was only Noah, his wife, if it was his 3 sons and their wives, and Og was tied to the top, then in order for Og to later on have a people group and for other Nephilim to exist, then one of Noah's sons or Noah's wife or their wives must have had an inappropriate relationship with Og in order to produce other children. So how did Og produce other children if he didn't have an affair with one of Noah's children's wives or Noah's wife? But it is all just fan fiction, and it is all just made up stories. We know exactly how the Nephilim bloodline was taken out of the human genome for the most part, and what happened to the Nephilim. Bible fantasy does not equal to actual anthropology and history. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.